So a question that I get a lot, like, is there anything that I won't talk about on stage? Like, is there anything that's off limits? The simple answer is no. I think that anything can be funny. I don't think that everything is funny, but I think that there can be comedy found in anything. I think most comedians would probably agree with that, although I don't speak for anybody but myself. See, comedy is subjective. If one person finds it funny, it's funny. It doesn't have to be considered funny by everybody. I think Bill Burr said it best. He said that, if I'm on stage and I'm joking, I'm joking. Just because you get offended doesn't mean that I meant it. And I think that he's right. I don't think that there's more people trying to cancel people, so to speak, than there was in the 80s or 90s. Like, you can just leave a show, jump on Twitter, and have instantly thousands of people read the shit that you wrote about that show immediately. That option just wasn't there 20 years ago. So one person's opinion can turn into 500 people's opinion very quickly, and those 500 people lack the context that the one person may have had. We don't tell jokes once. Any joke that you've ever heard on any special that you've ever seen was done multiple times, sometimes hundreds. Most comedians work on a special for like 6 months to a year before they actually film it, and they usually film it multiple times. Richard Pryor did Live on the Sunset Strip and bombed the first night so badly that he was afraid to do the second night. He did do the second night, obviously, when it became one of the best specials of all time, but we don't just go up there and wing it. At least not all the time, especially not when we're filming the special. A lot of people who watch comedy are like, oh my God, it just sounds like it's coming off the top of your head. That's because we practice at it. It takes a really long time to get good at this shit. Joe Rogan's been doing this since 1990. Louis C.K. has been doing it since 1986. Bill Burr started in 92. Kevin Hart started in 97. It really does take 15, 20 years to get good, and then you got to get better. And for most of that time, you are struggling. I've been doing comedy for 13 years plus, and I still struggle to make rent. Sometimes. I don't want to make it seem like it's every time. But it's just not a lot of money in it. You do it for the love, you know what I'm saying? Or because if you don't do it, you'll be a bad person. But the idea is to make people laugh. Comics aren't going on stage to try and bomb. That's not what we're trying to do. One of the reasons it is so hard to cancel a comedian is because comedy is subjective. If I find something funny, it's going to be very difficult for somebody else to convince me that I don't find that funny. That's, you know what I mean? The other reason is we don't have a lot. Because it takes so long to become a comedian and become like financially secure doing this shit. What are you gonna take from a comedian? I live in a trailer. Also, if you're a comedian and you've been doing it for a long time, you've probably built up a fan base, and your fan base usually doesn't get mad at you because they know who you are and they've seen you before. Most of the people who have a problem with something that a comedian says are not actually a fan of the comedian that they have the problem with. They might know that person, but they're trying to boil the entire person down to one thing that they said. And people don't typically do that to people that they know. So like if I tell a joke on stage and somebody has a problem with something that I said, which happened, most of the time they just won't laugh at the joke. And if enough people don't laugh at a joke, most comedians will stop telling it because, again, the point is to make people laugh. Now, just because I stopped telling the joke or comedians stopped telling the joke doesn't mean that they no longer think that it's funny. They just couldn't figure out how to convey the funny part in their head to the audience. Sometimes you might bring those jokes back when some years have passed and you got a new way of coming at it or something. But the reason that most comedians don't really care about people who are getting upset is because most of those people are being specific. Like, you laughed your ass off when I said how crazy women are and how crazy black people are. But when I said how crazy midgets are, that's when you got offended. So see, you made it personal about you, and now you're trying to get the rest of the people to agree with you because you feel alone. If you do comedy for long enough, I think that eventually you get to a point where you just realize that you don't owe anybody an explanation. And people's interpretation of your material is just not yours all the time. You can't control what another motherfucker thinks. So if somebody comes up to me and they say they didn't like one of my jokes, that's fine. Because I wasn't just talking to you. I didn't know you were coming. You know what I'm saying? I don't judge my jokes off of doing them once. I judge them off of doing them multiple times in front of multiple different audiences, in multiple different situations. And the best comedians say everything. They don't have a thing that they won't say, because the minute you start putting limitations on what you will and won't say, you're putting limitations on your progression in thought. And that stops comedy. You got to be able to see it from everybody's perspective. You got to understand that everybody thinks that they're right. They feel like they're doing the right thing. So you got to be able to see it from where they think they're seeing it. Because if you can understand why another motherfucker thinks that he's right from his perspective, you can find the funny. And that's the link to make everybody in the room laugh, even though nobody knows each other. Being a comedian is not about can you make motherfuckers laugh. It's about can you make motherfuckers laugh consistently and in as many situations as possible. Can you make a bunch of old Jewish women laugh, and in the next show, can you make a bunch of 15-year-olds laugh without pandering to nobody? That takes a lot of years to figure out how to do that successfully. I'm still working on it. I have jokes about everything. I have jokes about suicide. I have jokes about... I once did a rape joke followed by a dead baby joke and then put another rape joke behind it. All three jokes banged out. Are there people who are probably not going to like them jokes? Absolutely. But honestly, nobody in the world is unanimously liked. You know what I'm saying? And if you are, people are lying to you. But I mean, I personally I don't do comedy because I want people to like me. I do comedy because it makes me happy. So to those people who think that it is their duty to make everybody, jump on their side about the joke that they didn't like, if you really want a comedian to stop telling a joke, the easiest and most effective way to get them to stop doing it is to not laugh. Because I'm going to tell you like this. I am a fairly relaxed person. First of all, your mama, how about that? I go home and write an hour on the topic that made you mad because I'm petty. It's one of the reasons the comedians don't like people having cell phones in the room so much. First of all, that's literally stealing money out of our pockets. And second of all, those jokes might not be done. And they're going to sound fucked up, maybe, out of context. They are part of a show that I'm cultivating. Basically, it's just like anything. You know what I mean? Like, people don't see how much, the average NFL player puts in. They just see the results on Sunday. People forget the 8 years of college that doctors have to do, and then the 2 years of interning, and then another year and a half of residency. They just see the end result of that benzo. You feel me? So yeah, I mean, I guess that's basically it. So to me, not everything is funny, but anything can be funny.